Good evening. Call to order our May 11th, 2015, 7 p.m. meeting. This meeting is being both audio and videotape. Is anybody else audio or videotaping this meeting? At this time, please, could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, starting with our student rep.
Jack Moynihan, Student Representative.
Kathy Saletti, Recording Secretary. Terry Olajars, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Bill Fonseca.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Rich Fitzgerald.
Deirdre Mayu.
Gregory Thompson.
Elizabeth Marcin Boucher.
And at this time, it's bittersweet that we recognize our fantastic student rep, Jack Moynihan.
Thank you guys.
Would you?
Want me to stand up?
Yeah, come on over here.
You did get all dressed up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, Jack, it's been a pleasure because I think you have purely emulated professionalism. From the way you dress, to your demeanor, to your comments, you were a true school committee member. We can't say that all the time, and we thank you so much for all you've done for us and wish you the best of luck in your pursuits. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Enjoy it.
Congratulations, Jack.
I'll shake everyone's hand. Thank you.
Just shake everybody's hand with it.
Thank you.
Jack.
And thank you guys for the experience too. It was an amazing experience.
Go Polar Bears.
There you go.
Okay, at this time, I'm moving to agenda item number 2, approval of minutes. 2.1, approval of April 27th, 2015 regular session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the April 27th, 2015 regular session meeting minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mayu. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. Passes unanimous, Ms. Saletti. Committee and subcommittee communications. Once again, we'll begin with our student rep, Mr. Monahan.
All right, so two things. It's coming to an end. Seniors leave their last days in 10 days on the 21st. And then graduation's the 29th at 6 p.m. So it's definitely bittersweet. It's coming to an end quickly.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Couple of things. Student of the month from the LPVEC for the month of April. Luke Hansen, who was in Carpentry 2, and Kevin Jarvis, who was in Early Education and Care. The Early Education and Care is a relatively new program that's taking off like a shot because they didn't anticipate this much participation. They've got a license that says they can have 10 kids. They've got 10 kids plus a waiting list.
Oh, they do
It's
now?
amazing. It's been, between the end of last month and this month, it's been crazy already. All right, we had a concert last week, student, the Invention Convention on Friday. Beth, myself, and Deidre, we attended the Stay on the Hill out in Boston last week. We met with Senator Eric Lesser, Reps Angela Pupolo and Brian Ash. Both Ash and Pupolo said they want to tour this building sooner rather than later, so we're going to try and set something up before the current legislative session ends in June. So they're on board with what we're looking for as far as MSBA and everything like that.
Ms. Mayu?
Just want to echo some of the same things that we did the Invention Convention, which I always have a great time going to at Maple Shade. It's
Yeah.
fun to walk around, see some of the ideas that the kids have come up with. And then I also want to mention that we had the high school concert. And again, another concert that I'm amazed by, and I'll say this every time, for a music concert, it's the best $5 you'll get. It's worth it every single time. It is great entertainment. I love the jazz band.
You were screaming the whole time, right?
Yeah,
right.
that's right, yeah, exactly.
We'll get the truth of
Hold it
that.
up yourself.
That's right, I was, again, I really am just amazed at the talent that we have at the high school when it comes to all of the music at that night at the concert.
Mr. Thompson?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Ms. Mazzy
I have
Bosher?
to add two to the music concert. First of all, we need one more, Mr. Kieran, I gotta talk to you. One more jazz song, just saying.
That's right, never enough for the jazz
But it's
band.
amazing how far the orchestra's come in just a few years,
Yeah.
because some of these kids have
Yeah.
never even picked up the instrument, and,
Mhm.
you know, that was pretty big. The other thing was awards night, which was like just
Oh, yeah.
huge.
Right.
Awards night's a huge thing.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
that was a really good night. A lot of smart
Yes.
kids, hardworking kids, so.
And I just want to add that Ms. Mayu, Mr. Smith, and I had the pleasure of watching Tia Dempsey make a presentation for the Attorney General's, District Attorney's
Youth Advisory.
panel, and she was one of the key speakers. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Really did a
It
nice
really
job.
was wonderful about social media. It was, I mean, with so many wonderful things going on, kudos to the high school, the Maple Shade, especially for all of them going on very well. Thank you.
Can I just give one more point, I just want to notice, because I noticed at the bottom, is that this Saturday, at the high school tennis courts, we're having the grand
It's on the
opening.
agenda.
Oh, it is, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It is.
Did you read your agenda?
I did, but I was totally so excited by it.
Are you attending for us? Moving along. Number 4, opportunity for business to invest in committee. I don't see any at this time. We're moving on to presentations. 5.1, the LHS Student Handbook, Program of Studies and Code of Conduct for 2015-16 school year. And we have the administrative team here. Mr. Smith, you could introduce them?
Sure. We have our high school administrative team. We have Dr. Flanagan, we have Mr. Page, and Mr. Marhefka. In your packet, your program of studies, but in your packet, you have an outline of not only a follow-up, if you will, to the program of studies, as we had already heard a presentation on the drop ad period, and so it's a follow-up on that discussion. But also you have a new English elective course, and then some changes that are proposed for our disciplinary system, both in the high school handbook, and then it would also impact the high school section of the Code of Conduct. So Dr. Flanagan, Mr. Page, and Mr. Marhefka will take it away.
Is there any preference of what you want us to cover first?
Why don't you just go on out of it?
Okay, so disciplinary policy. So as with all our instructional and curriculum work that we do at high school, we apply the approach to being reflective, and when things need tweaking, we like to put forth the efforts to do so. With our tardy and our disciplinary policy, it's really important to note that we try very hard to make sure that we prepare kids for the real world. So we have conversations about being on school time really matters, because if you're not at work, things could go wrong for you, as well as, going to college. Some professors will close the door if you're not on time. But we use those opportunities to have teachable moments with our kids, and we believe that in terms of discipline, that discipline should be a quick conversation and shouldn't linger until points accumulate, and then it becomes, you kind of forget why you were sitting coming to the office to begin with. So we just wanted you to keep that in mind as we review the policy, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marhefka and Mr. Page, who were extremely instrumental in all of the changes that we're presenting to you today.
So just to reiterate and kind of further explain some of the points Dr. Flanagan made, is we really want our discipline policy and the way we handle it to actually shape behaviors. What we're finding with the way we currently handle it, we let both tardiness and discipline kind of accumulate, and then assign a rather harsh consequence after a series of behaviors have already become a habit. So then what we're finding is the consequence doesn't actually reshape the behavior or change the habit. It just kind of starts the clock again for the students in question to continue the behavior until we catch up with them again. So in looking at that, we really wanted to take a closer look at both our tardiness and discipline policy and how we change it. And we want to change it going forward.
Okay, so there's two parts to this proposal. There is the tardiness component, and then there's the disciplinary component. I'm going to take a minute to just kind of walk through how we address tardiness. And just to preface it, right now we do assign tardy points for 1 point for the first 10 minutes students tardy, then it's an additional point for every 15 minutes thereafter. That is not changing. There is no change to the proposal in terms of how we assign the tardy points. It's more when a student might receive a consequence after they accumulate so many. All right, so currently, right now, how we have it set up is students' first consequence is that they would lose eligibility for any extracurriculars or athletics if they achieve 20 tardy points, and if then they get up to 40, it becomes disciplinary, and we would assign either 3-hour community service. 3-hour would be a detention. One of the things that I've noticed when we made this change a few years back, and Ms. Marhefka can attest to it, going through it this year, is it does seem to impact our athletes and the kids who want to be involved in extracurriculars. However, for the kids who are the chronic offenders, ones who are tardy every single day, or it's a frequent thing for them, they don't really see a consequence for a while, and especially the ones who are not participating in the extracurriculars. So our hope here is to make the disciplinary consequence more immediate and more concrete, so they see it, I guess, in a more immediate fashion. But at the same time, there still is the eligibility component, which we'll reference later. Ms. Moorheffer will explain kind of how eligibility ties in. So the easy way to look at this is before we hit eligibility first and then discipline. It's actually the opposite. We're kind of flipping it right now, where the discipline comes first, and then eventually it can impact their eligibility as well if the discipline continues. And Ms. Moorheffer will explain that too. So, so right now the new proposal is to address students more swiftly in a more concrete manner. Is every 8 tardy points the students would receive 1 hour administrative detention or school-based community service, and every 5 subsequent tardy points the student would receive 1 hour administrative detention or school-based community service during that time. So our hope is that by hitting them in a more immediate fashion, where they would hit 8 tardy points, where they actually have the option, no, I don't want to say option, but they have the wiggle room to be tardy up to 7 times without receiving a consequence. That 8th time was when they would actually receive the detention or the school-based community service. And instead of having a 3-hour administrative detention, because the consequence is more immediate, we did shorten that to 1 hour. Okay, so there still is a consequence there, but it's more immediate. And then the second part of the proposal, sorry.
Mr. Page, if I could just ask you the brief description on the administrative detention and the school-based community service.
Yes.
What those exactly would be for a student?
Okay, so great question. We were actually discussing this today to make sure we had some examples to discuss with you guys so you could kind of see how that works. So, so detention is pretty explanatory, but the school-based community service during that time, and during that time is kind of the key phrase there. The students could do some type of productive work for the school during that time. So a great example would be last Wednesday. We had a group of students who were serving their administrative detention. We gave them the option of either staying in their detention or going to work in our courtyard, where they did a bunch of landscaping. And the kids, you know, they raked, they mulched, they planted flowers. So it would be something along those lines, you know, where it'd be something where they could either beautify the school or do something to assist our staff in some way, but it wouldn't just be, you know, go hang out somewhere or something like that, you know.
Okay. Would extra help still count?
So we.
Yeah. You mean in the classrooms?
Yeah, if they went with the teacher from 2 to 3 o'clock.
So it would be completely under the discretion of the administrative team.
Yeah.
And not
Okay.
not the teachers.
Okay.
Because in the past that
Yeah.
some teachers are more lenient, they'll just sign off on anything.
Mhm.
So we just want to make sure that we're consistent.
And that's a key too, is we've had that discussion, and there's some students who do take that as time to, you know, work seriously and get stuff done, but there's other students who will try to use that as just a way to get out of their actual detention.
And if I could kind of add to that, one of the other changes we're making from a structural standpoint is taking that Wednesday 3-hour that we currently have and dividing that up over Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So if a student does say like, oh well, I need to make up my chemistry test on Wednesday,
Mhm.
we still have the option to assign them Thursday if they, you know, to make it all work.
So there will be administrative discretion for extenuating circumstances.
Yep.
So I'm gonna be so say for instance,
Mhm.
you have a Wednesday or you have a Wednesday concert.
Mhm.
And you've got practice before the Wednesday concert. You've got an AP exam. You have another AP teacher giving you a quiz to practice for their AP exam the next week.
Mhm.
You are up until 2 a.m. and mom doesn't wake you up because you need to sleep. So if you miss your first class,
Mhm.
you're already gonna have your 8 or 9 tardy points and you're already gonna hit a detention. Because mom can't write a note saying, I didn't wake the kid up because it's exhausted. I'm using this because this is part of our reality where I left, like, for instance, my daughter, I just didn't wake her up one day, I made her stay home because she didn't want the tardy points and I said she needed the break. And it was a health issue, I think, too, a little bit along there. That's my big concern with this. It's not the kids coming
Yep.
in with a Dunkin' Donuts coffee 10 minutes late every morning.
Mm.
Even if it's my kid.
So-
No, you get your points.
So to kind of hit on that, and I think Dr. Flanagan used this example earlier today when we were discussing, is we look for patterns, you know? So trends, where if we have a situation where I look at a kid's disciplinary history and I see this is our first tardy and we're in the middle of November and it's been 3 months where we haven't had that issue. You know, there's always admin discretion, just like Mr. Verchero was just referencing, where, you know, we're not going to penalize a kid for doing the work and coming to school. you
But
know.
keep in mind, you know, it's really hard to distinguish that, right?
Well, I know,
Because,
it's not fair to say it's okay for one
Right,
child and not
exactly.
the other, and
Right.
I'm aware of that, but yet,
Mhm.
So we look at the kid, we
We
look at the
kid, we look at
situation,
reality.
we look at trends. Is this
Yeah.
something that they do regularly?
Mhm.
Is it followed by disciplinary, you know, they have a disciplinary track record? I mean, we look at those things. But the bottom line is we're really trying to send the message to our kids is that, you know, being on time is a really important life skill.
Mhm.
And being on time, when you're not, you're missing key important information in the classroom.
Yep.
So that, you know, they're old enough now to make those choices of whether to go to Dunkin' Donuts or go to class, you know.
are you
So-
finding that they might decide just to skip the whole day and take the day off instead?
I mean,
I think the key, I really have to put it, but I think the key to me is it's very easy to hide behind as administrator the policy as it's worded.
Mhm.
But I think it's important for us to hear that there is administrative discretion. If said parent calls you up and says, "This is the first time my daughter's been late," and there's no patent, the patent is an exemplary student,
Mhm.
then I'd like to think that you would have the ability and the courage to say, you know what? You know, understandable this one time. I'd like to think that.
And we have those situations now. I don't think it's any different than how we already do things. You know, if a parent calls me and say, hey, my kid's car wouldn't start this morning and that's why they're 45 minutes late,
Right.
or even
we're
like
not
this
going to discipline
morning
somebody
with
whose car doesn't work.
Or even like this morning with the whole Pleasant Street.
Great example,
Yeah.
too.
I mean,
Yep.
you know,
Right.
we do understand that things do come up and there
Yep.
are extenuating circumstances at times. This is more designed so, you know, the student, I mean, I do parking lot duty every morning and they all know how many tardy points they have and that's at the back of their mind and that dictates their pace every morning when they have their tray of, you know, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks and, you know, and it's like, oh, I'm only at 27. It's like,
Yeah.
great.
And telling them
Yeah.
not to bring the coffee in the morning and bring it to class would be more punitive, I'm assuming? Would be far more painful than to say
I
just
can
get
tell
it
you
to
that
school?
when I was at.
Would there be like, you know,
Yeah.
like
Their-
a
their
riot?
Their coffee is sacred to them.
It is.
And you know what's weird? I wasn't a coffee drinker in high school, but I'm noticing younger kids are drinking coffee and, yeah, I think that would cause quite a stir. I really do.
But
But if you want me to do that, I can.
No, I'm just surprised they can
No.
take a minute class, that's all.
I,
I'm just,
you know.
Well,
I'll
we
con-
want to treat them like, you know, young adults that
Yeah.
they are, and, you know, obviously if they spill it, they have to clean it up. I mean, that's kind of how we roll with them, is, you know, we give you chances until you mess up, and then we got to have a conversation about it, so.
Well, you've hit on the key points that I was looking for. The trends, the habitual offenders, and the administrative discretion. Because there are circumstances. Pleasant Street
Yep.
this morning,
Yep.
that messed everybody up.
Yeah.
So,
And I think what's just important to note too is the stuff that you guys are referencing, it's stuff that we do now.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the trends, it's more, our hope here is that we're trying to address some of the kids who are more chronic.
Right.
And hit it more immediate so they understand, you know, if you do this on a regular basis, it will affect you. There will be a consequence.
hopefully it does
So-
sharpen them a little bit.
Will the whole you miss out on after-school activities go away, or is that still part of it?
That's
That's going to tie in.
Tie in
And we'll
at the end.
yeah. So there still is the student in good standing component, and there still is the eligibility component, which we'll get to, but that does get explained in the latter piece. So, but let me just walk through the discipline piece a little bit now and explain how that one's going to work, because this one is really making a shift in terms of how we handle discipline. So currently, right now, when students are either written up or sent to the office or whatever infraction might be written up for cutting class, they receive either points or detentions. And a lot of the consequences that we have as currently outlined, students receive points. And as Mr. Marhefka noted, when a student gets to 13 points is when they actually receive that consequence of 3 hours. So that could be for 3 separate infractions. It could be for a cell phone and then disrupting class, possibly a dress code violation, things like that. So when they actually receive the detention, it's not necessarily a clear message of this is what you did wrong and this is your consequence. It's a combination of things. So our hope is to shift that policy to make it now a detention-based system. So when we have a consequence, it'll be very clear to the student, it'll be concrete. So what we have outlined here are a couple different examples of how we would administer the detentions that we'd be assigning. And right now, our thinking is to assign either 1, 2, or 3 hour detentions. And if you look at it, you can see how we would handle a cell phone infraction, and also how we might handle a student who is skipping class, how we might handle that infraction. So the first one, if you just walk through the phone, and this does align with our current cell phone policy that we have outlined in our code of conduct. The first offense for a cell phone would be a verbal warning, and that student would turn their phone in for the day. And it would stay in the office until 1:45, and then the student could pick that up. The second offense, the student would receive a 1 hour detention, and they would have a parent who would come pick up that phone. Third offense would be a 2 hour detention. Parent would still come to pick it up. And then if a student hits a fourth offense, you'd be amazed at how many students hit a fourth or fifth offense with the phones. Then it would be a 3 hour administrative detention, confiscation of the phone, the parent would pick it up. So you see the escalation, the progressive discipline, and how we would handle that for a phone infraction. Now, if you're looking at a student who cuts a class, it's a very concrete response to that first cut, because we really do want to send a message that it's not just going to be points. You know, so if a kid cuts a class now, the first infraction, the student would receive points for that cut. But we want to send a message: if you cut, there will be a consequence. So that first offense, the student would receive a 1 hour administrative detention. Second offense would be a 2 hour administrative detention, and third one, every cut thereafter would be an automatic 3 hour detention. So we want to make it clear, we want to make it concrete, and the response is more immediate by taking this approach.
I mean, we want to have some kind of impact each time that there's a disciplinary infraction. And one of the things we're seeing, especially with some more of our more frequent customers, if they receive points, all they know is they didn't get a detention.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all their concern is. It's not learning not to do the behavior again. It's just, okay, I know that's 4 points, so I don't get detention for that, and so I'll go and nod my head and move on.
Yeah.
To the assistant principals, because you're the two that are probably going to manage this, I mean, you're going to have detention Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it could be a 1 hour detention, it could be 2, or it could be 3, depending on the number of kids.
So we're going to run 1 hour detentions on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then we still run the 3 hour administrative detention on Fridays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So currently,
Who gets to stay for that?
paid.
there's a stipend for the So in our current model, we run a 3 hour detention on Wednesdays and a 3 hour detention on Fridays, so it's 6 hours a week. We still will be administering 6 hours of detention a week, so there's really not a change in terms of how many hours we're allotting. We're just taking that Wednesday one and we're spreading it out over 3 days in order to make this system work. So
Now, when I read 3 hour administrative detention, can I interpret that as I want to do an hour on Monday, an hour on Wednesday, an hour on Thursday? Just think it through.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how you want to set it up.
we have discussed that, and that, I think, similar to the way we do it, similar to the way we do things now, we would take into consideration what the infractions are,
Yeah.
what the reason for breaking up those
Yeah.
detention hours would be.
Because they're also all after-school nights, like if you wanted to get help, you know, so if I don't suppose they're the ones that are gonna go for extra help after school.
They
Right, I
find a
know, these
reason.
are like,
You know?
that's the way I'm thinking too, like how many people are, how many students are actually in detention on a weekly basis? And I know it sounds naive, because I know it wouldn't be my daughter in detention, nor anyone she would associate, I would
Yeah.
hope. So I like, how many?
So I would put the range of
That's right.
students in detention on Mondays and Fridays, anywhere from 6 to 10, somewhere in that range on a weekly basis, 5 to 10, somewhere around there. Those numbers are probably going to, but for a current 3 hour detention.
Spanning all grades.
Spanning all grades. Those numbers will probably increase with how we're going to be addressing tardiness now, because right now,
Okay,
again,
that's
we
what I
are.
was gonna ask also.
Initially, you would think it would increase, but hopefully it decreases.
That would be the
Right,
hope. That would be the
right,
hope.
it would be preventative more than it
Yeah, so-
follow through.
Yeah, so the hope would be that, we might, I don't want to say we would hope to see a spike at the beginning, but we would see a decrease in enrollment over the course of the year based on how effective we were doing things. Yeah.
And we definitely would anticipate, you know, a decrease in the frequency of certain behaviors
That's,
based on knowing that if I go to the office today, I'm going to have a detention.
yeah.
Rather than if I go to the office today, I know I
Or
only
you
have
can
3
hold
points.
out.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's, you know, so they receive some kind of immediate consequence.
So the hope is, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, we might at some point see some increases in the detentions, but our hope is that we see a decrease in the number of offenses throughout the course of the year, both on the tardy side and also on the infraction side with the discipline.
You gotta try something different to see what's
Yeah.
gonna have an effect.
So,
Good policy.
so in this, there's, even though the 2 points, or the, not points, sorry, the 2 systems operate separately, the tardy points and the disciplinary infractions, there is a way that the 2 do tie together, and that's what Mr. Marhefka is going to outline.
Right, so because we're essentially taking away the discipline points and merging the 2 into hours, as well as trying to address all students first, whether they're involved in something or not.
Yep.
You know, we do want to hold our athletes and other students involved in extracurriculars to a higher standard as well, because they are representing us in some way, whether it's athletics, music, so on and so forth. So if they reach a combination of 5 hours of detention, they would automatically lose their eligibility in whatever they're doing for a minimum of 1 week. And then before the beginning of the second week, we would schedule a meeting with them, similar to the way we do with external suspensions, to lay the groundwork for what the expectations are moving forward. So that way it's right, we have the meeting, it's in writing, it's very clear of what the students expected to do.
And the important just piece I want to note there is, at the end of that week, when we have that meeting, that does not guarantee that you're going to be reinstated for extracurriculars. Now, any disciplinary situation is going to be different. You know, it's going to be really unique to that one individual. So we're going to handle each one probably differently. If it's a student who has 5 hours worth of detentions due to tardiness, the expectation outlined for them is going to be an expectation for them to be to school on time for an extended period of time before they can be reinstated. If it's a behavioral issue, then there's going to be some kind of behavioral component to what our expectations can be in order for them to be reinstated. So they have, they're going to have clear expectations in terms of what we're going to expect from them. And, you know, I think it's going to be very clear that when you've hit your 5th hour, you're going to know, you know, over the course of that semester or over the course of the year, that this is coming, you know, so.
I guess I don't have a problem with the self-phone or the cutting in the class.
Yep.
I just seem like, so you're gonna get your tardy points and you're gonna get your immediate punishment, and then those tardy points are gonna hang on until you've had 5 days without being late before they start going off 1 a day?
No, we're not doing that anymore.
You're not gonna do that, but then, so how are you still accumulating
You're accumulating the detention hours.
the detention hours?
So
Okay.
Yeah, so it,
when we serve that 1 hour detention, the points now go back to 0 for tardies.
No, you're getting
No,
credit
there
for
are
1
no
hour.
points.
You get 1
Yeah.
hour, yeah.
After you get 5 of those hours,
yep,
even though they're served
Right.
hours, that's your threshold.
The next kicker.
Because one of the things we were thinking too, as far as the next level of this, is if you're up to 5 hours, you are not getting the picture.
You haven't learned a lesson.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
You're either not coming on time, or you're not behaving, or you're not doing so consistently.
so the number that you would hit in order to, so if we just stayed with tardies, you would be at 28 tardy points in order to hit 5 hours of
Right.
discipline, which means that you've probably been, if you're one of those people who's a minute or 2 late every single day, that's 28 times that you've been late to school. That's a lot. So,
Right.
so
and at that point,
But if you come in at lunchtime, you're screwed.
assuming,
You know what
That's
I'm
13
saying?
Yeah.
points, that's automatic 13 points.
No, it's
yeah,
one.
it is.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm
But-
saying? So
Mhm.
I'm just.
But I think the key thing is there is,
Well,
are you
no,
coming
but
in?
Maybe you're not feeling
Is it
good, or maybe you
excused?
don't
Yeah.
know how
Is
you
it
feel, or
excused
maybe-
though, or is it unexcused?
And that's the discussion that we were just having.
Yeah.
Is,
Yeah, it
reverts
is
back.
there
But it does
is there a
revert back,
discretion
but if a
component?
parent writes a note saying,
Yep.
this is the reason my child is in late today, my wasn't feeling well, they were feeling nauseous.
Right.
They never got sick, but they were feeling better after a couple
Yep.
hours.
Right.
It does, there are
does.
instances
Yeah.
like
No, I
that.
I
happen.
agree.
Will you
Right.
just say,
Not
okay, and let it go?
Yeah.
It's used to be the parents' note kind of meant something. Now it's like you have to have a doctor's note. It has to be signed. And there's, to me, there's concerns about that too, with just privacy. And I guess I just am concerned about being too punitive. Like I said, I don't care. If you're skipping class, you're goofing off with your phone, have at it. But when it comes to the tardy points and the kids who aren't necessarily just getting a coffee and coming in late, there's a reason kids coming in 2 or 3 hours late. It's not because they're taking their time.
Well, again,
But
we
I
look at
think-
the trends, we look at the individual
Yeah.
student, we look at all of those things because we realize that life happens, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
Right, and I mean, we definitely recognize, like you said, that there are extenuating circumstances at times, but there are also times where, I mean, I definitely understand people cover for their kids.
And I was just gonna say that,
Yeah.
there's sometimes parents
And
lie for their
so-
kids.
But then there's repeat offenders with that too, though.
Right, so,
You know.
right, so in looking at, you know,
That's
in
hard to
looking
discern.
at trends, I mean, not to sound trite, but like, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on, or, you know, shame on you, fool me 3 times and I won't go there, but, you know, at some point, if you're sick every Wednesday, I mean, it's either maybe time to produce a doctor's note or time kind of
Yeah.
work with us on this.
And that's the key thing too, is you reference a kid coming in 3 hours late. We have those situations all the time, and there is that discretionary component where, you know, I have somebody who comes in because they weren't feeling well, but they really wanted to take that test third
Right.
block. I'm not gonna be punitive on a kid who really wants to take that test. But there's the other kid who might come in at the same time and say, I just didn't feel like getting out of bed today.
Right.
We have those kids too, and for those kids, you know, there is accountability.
Or if we have the first discussion in the office, and we try to have these all in either one of our offices, the other, if it's announced publicly or okayed publicly, then the next kid goes, I was sick too.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's a lot of
Yep.
gray area, and I know you're just trying to
Yep.
find other ways to
Yeah,
get those regulars,
and just the point that I just want to stress too is that gray area has been there
right,
for years, and we've already been dealing with it.
right, you
you know,
gotta
and-
try different things.
you know,
Yeah.
But hopefully you'll see some progression away from, once the consequences are realized,
Yep.
especially with the 5 hours that have accumulated over a span of time. And you need that burden of proof, if it's tardy or whatever, show up on time. That's all.
And for some kids, just having to answer to people, you know,
Correct.
every couple days will keep them honest too. I mean, right now, part of where this is coming from, I mean, just over the last 11 days since we came back from April break, we're averaging 72 tardy students a day, you know, with a high of 94.
That's a lot.
Not everybody's sick, not everybody's
Right.
was up late studying, you know.
Yeah, but some of that's skewed, I mean, you
I
get
know,
seniors and, you
it's-
know.
I'd say it's
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
towards
Well, the
right
sun-
at the end
the
of
sun's
year.
been out, you know, I get it.
Yeah.
you know.
like that
All
matters.
day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I think enough there, okay. So that is the new discipline policy, which is bullet number 1 in your memo, Dr. Flanagan. So the next bullet is the new elective English course.
Yes, so I'm really excited about this. You know, I think East Meadow High School does a really great job in promoting literacy and communication with our students, and so we're always looking for ways to get kids engaged in reading, writing, communication. And as I came to you last month with the women in literature course, we found another venue to engage kids in elective courses that will help them hone their research, writing, and communication skills. We'd like to offer a sports and literature course and that will be open to all juniors and seniors, and much like the Women in Literature course, it's going to use sports as a venue to really take a look at political history of our country, worldly issues as well, social issues. It's a semester-long course. The kids will be engaged in reading both fiction and nonfiction reading related to sports. There'll be analytical writing, research, and formal presentations. So it's an exciting course. It's not a fluff course because it's going to contain a great deal of the literacy skills that are a lot of part of our frameworks for English. And Mr. Morrissey is slotted to teach that.
And one thing that I failed to mention during communications is I did attend senior presentations last week, and I was in with John Morrissey, and he mentioned this course to me. And the way he mentioned it to me and described it, it's something that I think kids are going to get a lot out of. Because there's a lot of, because of the way sports has evolved in the last 10 years, this is something I think they can learn a great deal from.
I'm concerned that we don't have any specific text, especially when the first text says nonfiction or nonfiction.
Well, one of the things that we do once a course gets approved,
No,
we
but-
have. the
Oh, that
teach-
should say
Oh.
both fiction or nonfiction. yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is there a mistake there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
I
right.
figured it was.
Is this
Yeah.
being offered for this?
For next year.
It is?
And so when we have a course approved, we generally have our teachers in the summer develop the scope and sequence and curriculum. So more details of it will be fleshed out once it's approved. But we don't want to work on the curriculum if it hasn't been approved yet. So Mr. Morris, he's sketched out some examples of some of the things that he would do that I think make a lot of sense.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, Dr. Flanagan, our third bullet is add drop form to support change to add drop policy.
Okay, great. Last time we were together, you asked if I could put a little disclaimer in there that would essentially give the building principal some discretion in terms of approving the add drop form. So I did add that there. You can see that on your form. I kind of italicized it for you as well. And it reads, unless there's an extenuating academic reason to be approved at the discretion of the building principal. This is a form, by the way, that we've been using forever. So it's not new, but it's just that one little that one little phrase there is new.
I guess that's better. Then they don't get no.
Yes.
You don't like no.
Questions there?
No, it was good.
Okay, if I'm correct, there's a fourth bullet, but I think that fourth bullet's already been
Yeah,
discussed.
yes, yes.
Okay. I'd like to vote on these one at a time, if that makes sense. Is that okay to vote on them one at a time?
That's fine.
So do I have a motion on the new disciplinary policy?
Move to approve the new disciplinary policy as presented this evening.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mayhew. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes. Yes, go ahead.
Just to be clear, though, it's a discretionary policy. It's a policy within the student handbook, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not a
There's
school-
elements.
No.
It would impact the high school.
Just high school.
Okay.
And can we just have this come back, just one portion come back for second reading? Just to, or would that be an all or none
It's not a
kind of
policy,
thing?
so we can't, it's
We
not,
can't?
the way it's written is our policy's coming back for a second reading, but I don't believe past practice, a proposal for an addition to the handbook would come back for a second
You
reading.
want more time to think about the discretionary
Well, I
policy?
mean, it's not gonna matter, because I'm not gonna, well, yeah, I don't know, it's just.
Then we'd have to have a vote to table it. That would be the only way we could do it.
That's all right.
Okay. Discussion over, all those in favor of the new disciplinary policy, please say yes.
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 Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay, so 401, Ms. Saletti. Ms. Marcy, about to abstain. The second request was for new elective course, sports and literature. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the proposed elective English course, sports and literature, history and identity.
I have a motion, Mr. Thompson. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second, Ms. Marcy, about any further discussion? I just have one, please make sure this does not become a dumping ground where the kids have no place to go and they all decide 25, and I'm being very stereotypical, 25 jocks aside, this is a great place to go. We can sit around and talk about sports. I hope it's gonna be a little more than that.
Mr. Morrissey is a consummate professional. I think he'll set the bar really high, and I think our guidance department as well. You know, one of the things we talked about with all these elective is trying to get a good cross-section of students.
Okay.
So like within our women's course, we don't want that to be all girls, we want
Right.
that to all be males too, and the same thing with sports and literature.
Thank you.
And I will just say too, because I do talk to him a lot about this in terms of what he expected from the course and what he was hoping to see come out of it. It wasn't just a course based on like current event sports. You know, he wants to look at Title IX, you know, and how that impacted women's in sports and getting funding. He wants to look at the connection between the civil rights movements in sports and talk about things. So,
Okay.
It's gonna be
there's
deep.
definitely a historical
Okay.
component to it. It's not when he says when he's talking about like history and identity, he's really looking at a progression throughout not just the decades, but even going back centuries of how sports has influenced society.
Thank you,
You know.
Mr. Page. That helps.
Yep.
And he actually asked the same question before.
Yeah, he said
that you did.
don't make this a dumping ground.
Okay.
Not using those words. He did also ask you.
Any further discussion?
Nah.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous, Ms. Saletti. And the add drop form to support change to add drop policy. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the course change request form as presented this evening.
I have a motion, Mr. Fonseca, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Mayu, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed? Mr. Lenny, it's unanimous. And we'll thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Whittaker.
Jack,
Appreciate
good
it.
luck.
I
Thank you
have
very much.
one
Appreciate
favor.
it.
I would love to see you guys come back with a non-calculus based, really good, like a business math course that counts toward maybe our math curriculum. Something that you guys think that might be usable for college, that kids can take, that isn't like, okay, you've taken Algebra 2, now you gotta do pre-calc, or you gotta do something yucky. Something that maybe kids might enjoy. I don't know if there's such a thing out there, but I would love to see if we could think about that in the upcoming year.
We just added a new math course to kind of meet the real-world applications for math
Yeah.
this year. So that's kind of like
Well, I know
our,
you have, but I don't know if after you've taken Algebra 2, or even pre-algebra, and you've calculus, and now you're a senior, you've done pre-calc, you're a senior, is that gonna be a class that somebody at that level is gonna take? Or is that gonna be a step back and not good for colleges?
we're definitely going to need some more staffing to accommodate more math classes.
Yeah, okay.
Our Algebra 1 classes are kind of growing in numbers, so we love to offer lots of new courses, but a lot of it
Yeah.
depends on staffing issues.
Okay.
So.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Very much, very impressive. Now we're coming to the highlight of the night, the Assistant Superintendent for Business Quarterly Budget Report. And we all know what this is, don't we? Snapshot.
Yes. But I might add, in a bad way, I believe this will be the last time you do it.
No, one
I
more.
was thinking
Oh,
of
one
that.
more.
Is it-
Is it gonna do one more? Well, maybe.
It's yours, Mr. Hojaz.
Thank you. So, and it's really a quite short little report. There's really less than 2 months left of this fiscal year. Our budget has been stable all year, still is. So we do have enough sufficient funds to cover all expenses. I projected forward all of the substitute accounts and everything to make sure we're good. So this will allow for some end-of-the-year purchases, and Finance Subcommittee meeting will be required within the next couple of weeks to
Okay.
approve those purchases, approve transfers. And during the next month and a half, we'd also like to have an athletic budget subcommittee.
Okay.
So that we can examine, what we did this year, and hopefully set up a kind of more concrete budget for athletic than we have in the past.
Okay.
Because we have so much more of it now contained within our appropriated
Right.
budget, and a real plan on how to spend that money so that it kind of can stay in the black and stay in good stead. So as we look towards the end of the year, the balances look good, and this is a snapshot in time. Any questions?
I just wanted, maybe it's just a typo, at the very bottom of page 2, it has 4 asterisks, December and January was not posted. Is that just was a carryover?
Oh, it probably was,
Okay,
yeah.
I couldn't find it, and I meant to ask that.
But what
earlier.
does happen sometimes is when I run these reports and the expenditures are true to the date that I ran the report, but the revenues don't necessarily get posted like every week. So they get posted once a month at the town. So this probably does not include April's receipts yet because they haven't been posted. So it might be a little skewed from that. But that's why I usually put those asterisks, and I do use the same thing as a template, so I guess I forgot to
It does look
fix
very
that.
positive.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Overjaz? Well, I have a motion to accept the Assistant Superintendent for Business Quarterly Budget Report.
So moved.
Mr. Thompson has made a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Marcy and Boucher, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. That's unanimous, Ms. Saletti. Moving to new business, 7.1, request for EL Post 293 Legion game sign at the high school for the month of June and July.
Ready? Okay. In your packets, you have an email that it was addressed to me from a community member, Mr. Robert Mack. And then below that email is an email that was sent to the planning board. And it's a request for the months of June and July to put a sandwich board sign advertising just on the day of baseball games. It's a sandwich board sign with the Legion logo, and it announces what time the game is and the fact that it's taking place here at the high school on the baseball field behind the school. Then it would be removed at the end of the game, so that request has to first go through us and then to planning.
I'm okay with that, as long as they hold to their word that that sign will be up only for the game, will be taken down immediately after the
Yeah,
game.
that's my only
Right.
concern.
Yeah,
That's
I'm good with that.
Right.
Immediately if they put
So
that
how many
in.
non-school related games do we have here at the on school grounds in general? Non-school related?
And, but not rec department, or even.
Yeah.
Well, you have a number of rec games that
Yeah,
take place.
non-town.
Okay, no town.
Although you're gonna have
Could
a number,
apply
you're gonna have a
as
number.
well, though, because,
Right.
I guess my question is, are we setting a precedent that anybody who uses any field at any time can put any sandwich sign out front? Because if we say the American Legion can do it, what makes us say that the Cub Scouts can't, or the soccer team can't? I'm just
Right.
asking
No,
that
no,
question.
it's-
I think the town is oversigned as it is, because we have the ability to put signs on anybody's lawn that you want to, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So more signs, I'm not always in favor. I'm not trying to prohibit attendance from these events. I think it's a worthwhile event. I'm just asking the question.
I mean, again, we always have the discretion to say no. I understand.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do we say
Yeah.
no today?
I mean, that's obvious.
Because once we say yes, then we don't have the discretion to say
Right.
no.
Well, yes and no, but, yeah.
No,
I
yes,
understand.
no. If we say you can put them up for the season, we can't say no again, right? I'm just asking the question because I don't want to see 6 signs lined up every Tuesday because there's
Right.
things going on at the high school. That's
Right.
not what I want to see on public grounds. I don't think we're in the business of advertising for a thing. This is a non-profit organization. I'm not saying we're trying to make money off it, but at some point, there's a what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't look good on the town. Maybe if we had,
Like a signage board
yeah,
where
you
things
could
could be
put
changed.
dates that
so
are
it-
happening,
it's
maybe that
one.
would be better, and maybe it wouldn't, I don't even know, I'm not proposing that, no one is, but this is just relative to what's being asked for. And I think we addressed it somewhat when people, when we talked about signage on the turf field. I don't know.
It's a good point.
I'm not against the event,
Well,
I'm
that's
not
the thing,
against the
Right.
activity.
When this game is in session, are there other games going on too? Because this is more of like an outside
There may be
group that's.
practices, I mean, you're talking the months of June and July, so at least half of June and all of July, we're out of session.
Right,
So none of our activities will be going on, but certainly the fields are in use.
and that's sort of why I was leaning
Oh, 'cause
towards
we're
being
out of
okay. Yes, because that we were out of school,
Well-
that's why I was kind of leaning like it wouldn't bother me so
Mr.
much.
Thompson's point, which is
But
valid.
I do understand his point.
Maybe this is a test case, and we say that the sign can go up once school is out of session. That all our activities, all the signs that we may want up is done with the last day of school. And he can put the sign up beginning the first day after the last day of school.
Well, but is that arbitrary though? Because my goal is to not have multiple signs up at multiple
Right.
times. So just because the kids aren't here, and I'm not diminishing anyone else's
Right.
point. I think that's valid. But
Right.
but how do you say to other folks because there's other events in the summer that we can't have signs? I just don't think it's the business we're in as
Right.
a public institution. I think if we were charging someone to use our facilities, which in fact we do at times,
Right.
it might be a different story because there's,
They need to advertise,
attendance is
right.
important, but this is participation event, really is what, I
Do
mean,
they
maybe they
pay-
charge, they
Do
charge.
they pay for
No.
field time?
They don't charge.
I think
For
it goes
the
through rec.
turf? Not
They're
during
not playing
summer?
on turf.
Oh, they weren't?
They're not playing on
Oh,
turf.
So
My
they
pass-
essentially need a different venue then to advertise their games.
Yeah, but just
Then our
because we're
purpose,
on
so you're
Maple Street,
not-
we have a good location, should we allow signs to be put out? I guess
Right.
that's exactly it.
Right.
Right, because if this was at Birchland, right, and we had no frontage, which I know we have some on Elm, but it's not as, you're not gonna pull one on Birchland Ave or Hayward Hill,
Right.
right, because it doesn't, who's gonna see it?
Well, this goes back to the same, like when St. Michael's players, did we let that go?
We did.
That-
We do,
Yeah.
because we have
And I
lots of
asked the same
students,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's fine,
But I think
speaking
this is
to-
why it becomes to our discretion and.
So there was more than one.
Well, there's the elite ones that always.
And they weren't even here, the St. Michael's player.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
And we
think this
put,
is
we put
why,
specifications on that, I believe.
During
It has to be
this-
down by the
Yeah, it
time
had to
they
be
break
down
up.
by-
well, and is it the kind of thing where it's our discretion that we can say yes to them, and then if another group said, oh, by the way, we're using your parking lot that day and we want to advertise too, do we have the right to say, no, we already have a sign up?
Yes, we could.
Yeah,
So
we
that's
could
what
do
I'm saying,
that.
that's our
But
discretion.
it makes us look very inconsistent.
Yes,
does.
You
exactly.
can't just do it arbitrarily, just because you like Legion, you don't like the raise of
No, or that
funds.
they came to us first and they got their
Right.
sign up.
They don't put a sign up for the concert series, do they? Anybody?
Yeah.
They
I'm
put us-
sure they do.
Yeah, they do.
For the concert
high
series at the
school.
Not in
Rotary.
high
It's
school,
not
it's
at
in the
high
That's at
Rotary.
the Rotary
It's
by
at
the
the Rotary.
church too.
Do they
They
get town
put it-
permission for that too? Does the board of selectmen approve that? Probably not. Don't ask me.
Probably not.
Yeah, they put it by the church on
Don't ask
that
questions like
side.
this. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean
Yeah.
to, same with St. Michael's, I don't mean to cause.
Now,
havoc
as far as, they don't charge admission, but in the past when, because I've attended a lot of these games, they do pass the hat, all right, to
Yeah.
support the organization.
Right.
See, I
So
guess I
it's-
feel I'm still reeling over tardy points, so I'm okay with this.
There are always gray areas, if we've learned.
You know what I'm saying? I guess I
Yeah.
feel that because they're a nonprofit, if they were for profit, I might have more of a problem with it. I guess I feel a little bit that some of these nonprofit, like American Legion's, Knights of Columbus, things like that, I think they need younger
Fun. They
people
just
to
want
become
people to come in,
interested in, just as a society in a town, we need more younger people interested in them as a
But
whole.
is the sandwich board gonna do that?
Well, no, but it might get a kid to go to a game with a dad or something. I
They
don't
do give
know.
us girls state and boys state, I'll throw that in there.
Yeah.
You know, this Legion.
So I just felt comfortable because it wasn't
is
school
un-
time and that there probably wasn't a lot going
Oh,
on.
but June is school time.
It was,
Well, we're gonna find out the,
I don't mean to hold it up.
Well, it's
I don't
okay.
want you to-
No,
I'm not gonna lose sleep
You
over it.
certainly could put a specification in the motion.
But I
saying
believe
that it's
though.
after the final day in June.
Right. The zoning in town, my understanding is zoning in town doesn't allow for sandwich boards unless it's on town grounds, which I never understood
Right.
that. I mean, that's kind of
It's just-
hypocritical if you ask me.
Yeah, it's just one of those- it's
We can,
just-
you can't have them, but, so I don't know, I'm not a big signs around
Right.
town guy unless it's in commercial or industrial and where it should be. Otherwise, it should be pleasant and in your face.
I don't know, sometimes I see it's
That's
like a
all
great
signs.
reminder, like, oh,
It-
look.
It is.
Guys, let's do this tonight. We can go watch this game because I know
That's
you've
a
always
valid
wanted
point.
to watch a
That's a
baseball
valid
game.
point.
And if I
Yep.
didn't see that sign, I would not have known this was going on.
It's valid, yeah.
well, do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the placement of the sandwich board signs for the American Legion. Do we want to start after school ends?
After the last day of school?
After the last day of school, which is currently June
June
17th, to be put up in the morning and taken down at the end of the game.
I have a motion from Ms. Marcy and Bunch, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mayo, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
So it's 4-1 with Mr. Thompson opposing. Thank you. 7.2, tennis court grand opening this Saturday, May 16th. Mr. Smith and I met with the Tennis Association, am I correct?
Yes.
Went through a number of things. There's a ribbon cutting ceremony at 12 o'clock. They would like a member of the school committee to be there. At this time, I am working that day.
I
Mr.
will-
Mayo was out of
Yep,
town.
I'm out of town.
I will be there for the ribbon cutting, but then we have a graduation thing we gotta go to, so I will be there for 12 o'clock.
That's all.
Tennis kids have to be there.
Yeah, well, here we go.
Yeah.
But we'll be there for the ribbon
Okay.
cutting.
And it's all, I think it's gonna be all within about 15 to 20 minutes, right, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, the ribbon cutting will be relatively quick. What the East Long Meadow Tennis Association really wants to do is celebrate throughout the day. So as you saw in your packet, you have a description of some of the things that will be going on. They're going to get people of all ages and abilities, hopefully onto the courts, using the courts. We did get a waiver for a food concession truck, so there'll be hot dogs and hamburgers coming from the food concession
Right.
truck comes from the Delaney House.
Okay.
And you're comfortable, Ms. Boswell?
Oh, yeah.
And is
no,
Beth
I think
gonna have
it'd be
to
great.
speak?
Maybe I'll be
The
there.
tennis,
Have something, have a couple sentences ready.
the
Yeah.
tennis team is practicing different games that they're gonna be able to show the kids how to
Right.
play, because on the actual lines themselves for the tennis court are smaller lines for
Right.
younger kids to play.
Junior tennis.
Junior, yes, so they were showing the kids how to, so the tennis team minus my kid will be there.
Well, thank you
She'll be there a little
for,
bit.
thank you for representing us.
Yeah, we
It's really
appreciate it.
appreciated. Okay, moving along, 7.3, I'm gonna kind of fold in some dates here, along with number 9. We're looking to make sure we get the most relevant and recent test data from our administration. So we're looking at moving June 8th to June 15th So on June 15th and June 22nd, we'd have that split presentation with the district, with the secondary,
Mhm.
and then the elementary. So we'd like to move the 8th to the 15th. It's on a Monday, and the 22nd will be the two key dates, 15th and 22nd.
Unless you want to change it up and do elementary first. We did secondary first at the mid-year.
Okay, so do people feel comfortable going 8th to the 15th, which would be the 15th to 22nd? Is the people okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay,
Are we currently on the 22nd already?
yes.
We are.
So we're just moving the.
Eight.
You're moving the
15th.
8th to the 15th, so you're going to have back-to-back weeks.
And do we want to have the elementary first or the secondary district first?
Whatever.
Whatever
Schedule
makes
matter
you-
now.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then continue down to dates, please note, of course, May 18th is our annual town meeting at 7 o'clock.
Yay.
Note that May 26th, our next school committee meeting is on a Tuesday, Monday being the holiday.
Mr. Chair, just wondering, since we do approve the school committee meeting dates, would you like a motion to
Yeah, I think
make
we
that
should.
change?
I think we
So
should, yeah. I
I'll
think
move
if-
that we change our first meeting in June from June 8th, that will now be on June 15th. Boy, that was awfully wordy. but-
Mr. Thompson made a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Mayo seconded, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have that, Ms. Slade, unanimous? And also, we'll be back to 26th, we'll be back to 26th after town meeting, okay?
And the prom's on the Wednesday, the 27th, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Jack, from all of us,
Oh,
really.
yes,
Good
thank
luck.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And having said that, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.